Okay, welcome to this week's episode of Hashtag Leadership What's on Your Mind, a podcast to make you stop and think about your leadership journey and adding value by bringing great people in business and their stories and experts in their field. So today we're speaking to Scott. How you doing, Scott? How you doing?
I'm good, Stu. You?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. I just got another how you doing in there, didn't I? So I know Scott from school days, which is a bit bizarre. Ben, your brother, was one of my best friends, so I saw you quite a bit. But we bumped into each other about 2 years ago. We've just been saying behind the scenes. And very much great business story. In the thick of it right now, and a massive advocate and well-read regards to leadership. So while I start the timer, Scott, could you just introduce yourself for people who don't know you?
Sure, yeah. My name's Scott Davis. I'm Group CEO of a business called the Ethikos Group. And the Ethikos Group is basically a vehicle, an investment vehicle for me and my wife. And we're buying up engineering businesses in and around the UK. We've got two group engineering businesses. We call them OpCos, so operating companies. One, Delta Rock Group over in Sandicroft in North Wales, which we acquired in March 2017. And we've got another business we acquired in December last year called Gilks, which is based over in Nantwich, but has a regional office up in Anglesey.
Fantastic. Awesome.
Yeah.
So it's been great having you on. Yeah.
Pretty busy, yeah.
So we're called Hashtag Leadership What's on Your Mind. So one of the first things is, what comes to your mind when you hear the word leadership?
The thing that I think of with leadership, and people say, you know, what is leadership to me? And I've been asked a few times, you know, what's my job? Because as Group CEO, obviously I'm at the top of the tree. But for me, leadership isn't about being at the top of the tree or necessarily leading in the traditional sense. For me, leadership is about making other leaders. And that's my job. So when anybody asks me what my job is, it's creating other leaders. And that's the way I see it.
Yeah, great. And what I've seen from what you've been doing as well is that definitely comes across, even in the world of social media that we have nowadays, and LinkedIn and stuff like that. So let's go purely on you to start off with. So whether on reflection or whether you were conscious of it at the time, where did your leadership journey start?
Well, I think, and I thought about this obviously when you sent the thing through for the podcast, and I was trying to put a finger on it, and whether I was actually consciously conscious of knowing that journey had started. And I don't think I was at the time, but it was. I served my time as an electrical apprentice at Shot and Steel Works when it was British Steel, and during that process in my department, I was so the grade 1 was effectively a foreman, and then the grade 2 was the sort of assistant foreman. And I got made up to a grade 2 shortly coming out of my apprenticeship, which meant that when the gaffer was off, when the grade 1 was off, it was me who was directing the traffic and the troops. Now, I think at that point, that was my baptism of fire into the world of leadership, although I didn't know it then. It was just, oh, the boss is off and I need to deal with you know, these dozen guys that need work and assistance. And as a sprightly 21-year-old baby-faced, fresh out of an apprenticeship, you're directing these guys who have been in the industry 30 years. You know, it was a bit of a challenge, if I'm honest. So I think that's probably the start.
Where do you think that came from? Why were you identified as that person to take that role?
I think there was a number of factors. One being that the steel industry was being decimated or had been decimated, and there wasn't enough boots on the ground above us. So there was a case of, well, he's next in line sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? So I can't claim any credit for that. I don't think I performed too badly as an apprentice, you know, giving myself a little bit of credit about that. But I think a large amount of it was the rub of the green, and I was just in the right place at the right time to be given that opportunity, which, you know, as a 21-year-old, you grasp with both hands and make the best fist of it. So yeah, it was.
You've always been learning since that point as well.
And that's it. You don't stop really, because, you know, when you're trying to lead or get your team to do exactly what they need to do in the way that needs to be done. You know, when you're talking to somebody who's twice, 3 times your age in some cases, and has been in the industry a lot longer than you soon learn the hard and the fast way on how to speak to people and how to get those results. And you do that by making a hell of a lot of mistakes and upsetting a few people and rubbing people the wrong way sometimes. But
yeah, you said that a few times, that I say about the working in the currency of people, because that is exactly what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think that's been foundational, really, the communication skills that were drummed into me, if you like, at an early age. That's been quite key.
Yeah, awesome. So tell us a little bit about your story and your journey then, regards to business and obviously having a leadership stint on it.
So I went from the steelworks to work in factories on sort of shift work, and then on my days off on shift, I started my own business, just doing electrical work, really, Stuart. It was, you know, everything from people's lights to sort of work in offices and things like that. And then after a few years of working shifts, got tired of working shifts. I went to learn another trade, so I went into a junior software engineer. So I went from the electrical game into control and automation software with a local company, learned the trade on control panel manufacture and automation systems. And then I was really lucky to travel quite a bit with that company up and down the country, doing a lot of work for them. And then it must have been probably 2004, I went self-employed full-time on my own. Had a couple of guys working for me, and then in 2008 set up another business with a couple of other guys, exited that in 2016, spent a bit of time off, and then got involved with Delta Rock in 2017, and acquired that business in 2017. So it's been quite a whirlwind journey, if you like.
So how many people were Delta Rock when you took over?
So when we bought it in 2017, there was about 32, okay. 32 in all, and we kept some of the old owners on for a period, just for the handover period, and then we started to reposition the business. So part and parcel of that was looking at the skill sets we had in the business and where we wanted to take it, deciding whether the skill sets suited the business going forward or not, removing those that didn't and adding those that did. So, you know, that was. Do
you know what? That's the reason I asked you the numbers, because going into a organisation that has people, that obviously has a strand of changing a culture, changing a leadership, changing a direction. So tell us a little bit about what you did to do that.
So I think you get an inherent feeling, and it's the same whether you're an employee or the boss, really, in a business. And you know, you get to feel who the people who are facing the right way on the bus and who are really pulling in the same direction as you and who aren't. And fundamentally, the first stage of that for me was get the wrong people off the bus as quickly and as compassionately as you can, and get the right people on the bus and facing the right direction and trying to align them into a common goal. So that sounded really easy, but in fact that probably took me the best part of 2 years to do that, because culture isn't built in days. It takes years, and we're still working on that, and it's a daily thing, you know. So yeah, that was probably the fundamentals that we had to sort of set the direction and make sure everybody was aligned.
Yeah. What sort of actions or what sort of things were you actually implementing, or what things were you asking? How and again, I know that culture takes a long period of time. What I'm trying to get at is, obviously there's people that listen to this podcast who are at different levels of their leadership journey, and there might be some people who are thinking that I need to change the culture, or they're going into a new role, for example, and they're going to take on a team. What sort of things were you doing?
Well, I think first of all is you've got to communicate, and that's the biggest thing. So the constant communication is massively key in any part of business operations, but certainly when it involves change. And not only communicating the change, but why you're doing it and what you see the benefits are doing it. Some people will get on board with that and be like, right, you know, I see why we're doing this. Other people will, I call them fence builders. So they'll build every fence possible for you to try and trip you up, and then you've got to make a decision whether they're right for the business. But there's a lot of and there still is a lot of communication that goes on in and around that. And then it's, you know, you're almost identifying who your champions are within that business, who's gonna shine, who's gonna take the business forward with you, rather than and then, like I say, moving the people who are the fence builders out of the business, or, you know, pulling them to one side and having a word and just saying, look, you know, this is what's happening. If you don't like that, that's fine. And almost the door's not there to keep you in.
Yeah, yeah.
As brutal as and as harsh as that, savage as that sound, it's what needed to be done. So
awesome. Yeah. So a question back to you, really. How do you keep yourself? I say about having your finger on the leadership pulse, or that lifelong learner, because I know that you're an avid lifelong learner. So how do you find time for that, and why do you find time for that?
Well, anybody who says that, you know, it doesn't matter what level of business you're at, whether you're starting out or whether you've been a CEO for 20 years, anybody who says they know everything is an absolute liar, for a start. You're always learning. And I read quite voraciously, but some books I'll read and I might read 3/4 and say, you know, oh, there was a quarter of that I found useful. The rest is a bit of repetition. But I think you've got to make time for yourself. You have to make time for yourself for your personal development. So I did a level 7 in leadership and management, purely because my last qualification was a technical qualification in electrical and electronic engineering back in 2001, I think. So I did that last year at Bangor University, just to prove to myself that, you know, what I was doing in practice matched the theory, and I was it was a bit of a rubber stamp as well, just to make sure that I was on the right track. So I think you have to make time for that. And it's difficult sometimes with the pressures of, you know, operations and things like that. And that's why it's really, really important to set off whatever journey you're on, to set off with that end in mind, and try and figure out, what do I need to delegate? What do I need to keep ownership of as a leader? What do I need to delegate in the first instance? And then when I get to the next stage, what else do I need to then let go of? And that is the it's the constant, really. What I'm thinking about is, right, not how can I make myself redundant, really, from an operational perspective, but also what does that position need, or what does that individual in that position need from me to be able to become a leader of that discipline, section, whatever that might be. Making time's always difficult, and that's always a pressure. And you can always find an excuse why not. But what I found really useful was scheduling. So I'm quite rigid on my diary in terms of what can go where and how many meetings I can have in a day. And, you know, if I've got a task to do, I don't write to-do lists. I'll put an hour in, right? That's going to take me an hour. I've got a focus hour on that. Turn the phone off, turn the emails off, and just crack on and do it. So that I've been doing for about 18 months now, and that's helped massively.
Okay, I was going to say, how did you get to the stage of being able to do that? Because the first client I ever worked with, post-military, that was one of the issues. I was like, if everything was perfect, what would you do? And he said, well, I'd have a week off, I'd be in, but no distractions. But we slowly built back from that. And I think now he still has like an hour every Wednesday to refocus and redrive. But it's challenging.
It's massively challenging. And the hardest thing with anybody who's got that entrepreneurial spirit or is a leader of their own business is the hardest thing is to say no. Because you want to keep everybody happy, you want to keep the clients happy, you want to keep the staff happy, you want to keep the supply chain happy. So you're always giving away a piece of yourself to keep everybody happy. And at some point, you've got to realize that we need to save some of me for me. And I need to do this task, because almost zooming out a little bit and looking at the bigger picture to say, right, if I do this, these are the benefits that will come. So a lot of it's about perspective and context, really. But it's a hell of a discipline to learn. And I can't say I'm 100% disciplined with it. There's still the odd things I get dragged into that I shouldn't do. And, you know, certainly this year, with the year we've had, I've been back in the trenches quite a bit with the guys in the operational businesses. Yeah. But that's been a massive necessity. They needed my support. I was there. You know, you can't leave them. So there is a bit of the time discipline and the self-learning that's gone out the window a little bit. But you know, I challenge anybody who hasn't reacted in that way this year.
Yeah, I just want to pick up on one. We'll do two things in one here. So one is you're in great company, because I don't know whether you'd seen the episode with Gary Ridge, but global CEO of WD-40, the first thing he did when he got his global CEO status was went back to university and did a master's in leadership. And that's exactly what you just said, that you've got to keep learning and making sure that what you're doing, because obviously it's great to, and even if you get 1 to 5% out of a course or about that, it's going to have a massive impact, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, it leads on to what I'm going to say now about how, not how, but your awareness of you doing this is about that modeling, about being there. And you said about being the top of the tree. And I think that's very much as we say that, don't we? And again, a label, but it's not that. And I know you're definitely not that.
No, and this is, so anybody who draws an organogram of their business, you know, there's always MD, CEO at the top and every division. And I always turn that upside down. So I'm at the bottom. And my job is to support everybody else above. So, you know, when you look at it in terms of accountability and responsibility, where does the buck stop? Well, it stops at my desk. So, you know, and that's it. And I expect the same off the general manager at Delta Rock and the MD over at Gilks. And they understand that. But they always know that if they need me, they can pick up the phone any time of day or night, and I'm there for them. So I think that's the real skill, I suppose, in a way, of a leader is getting over yourself. You know, rather than being the big I'm the leader, I'm the boss. It's not about that. You know, you're there to create new leaders in the business and help them create leaders under them, and so on and so on. But it's about support, you know, because people say, oh, you don't have a boss. Well, I do. I've got a boss on this side, which is all the clients that we serve. And then my other bosses are the people in the business that I have a responsibility to make sure that they can pay their mortgages, you know, can feed the kids and that, you know, it's a big responsibility. But I think once you position yourself as you're there to serve them, rather than them to do your bidding as the boss, I think that change in mindset is incredibly important for a leader to get over.
Yeah, amazing. So we've got like 3 minutes left. It goes so quick. I just wanted to pick up on a couple of things. We were speaking before we came on about like reading well, understanding models, stories, etc. And about making it your own unique journey. Like from my perspective, looking in at you and knowing a little bit about your business stuff so far, it's like the people who do it really well make it look easy. You've just said it's not easy. No. It's come from a lot of ups and downs. And how do you take reading models and sort of advocate being you? And I know you've said about keeping yourself, but what's your thoughts on those?
Well, I think you've got to educate yourself, you know, and that comes from, in my perspective, you know, YouTube videos are great and reading for me, I'm an avid reader, but you can find in a lot of business books, leadership books, all these models, and some follow very, very similar threads. And what I try to find is one, I call it a golden nugget moment, where you find a real golden nugget in a bit of reading. You think, all right, I can maybe use that, or I can adapt my style, or I can adapt what we're doing in one of our businesses or all of our businesses to do that. So I think being open to new ideas and educating yourself to the extent of embracing these ideas is probably part and parcel of that. But I think you can get a bit overwhelmed and procrastinate about what the right thing is to do. So the important thing for me is when you're looking at a strategy or a plan or learning or reading, is what's the net result? So what's the net result for the business or for me personally, or what actions am I going to do? How am I going to bring this to life? So if we're talking culture, well, it's fine that we all want a great culture in our businesses, but what does that mean to every individual in that business, and how are you going to bring that to life on a day-to-day basis? You know, you can write a strategy that's 100 pages long and leave it in the drawer. That's no good to anybody. You know, it's how are you going to bring that to life, and how are you going to cement that in the culture and then the mind of everybody in your business? And that's the challenge.
Yeah, amazing, awesome. So what's next for you? What's 2021 looking like?
Well, 2021. So we're making a few appointments across the group, just to strengthen some second tier management and some group functions as well. So we're looking at making some appointments early in the new year. And we're also talking with a number of businesses about acquiring them as well. So the acquisition trail really continues, which I'm spearheading, I suppose you could say. And we're really fortunate. We've got a lot of support in that respect. So I've built a board of non-exec directors, and I've got a great finance guy who works for the group, a chap called Chris Higginson. He's a whiz operationally on the numbers, but also acquisitively as well. So I'm looking at acquisitions. So yeah, the group's going to carry on growing, and everybody keeps asking me when my exit plan is, and I turn 40 next year, Stuart, and I'll never retire. Never retire.
Awesome.
No,
not far behind you.
Yeah, no, it's not going to. People keep asking, when you're going to sell, It's not going to happen. It's not what I'm here for. The thing for me isn't the finish line. It's never been about the finish line. It's about building something special with a great bunch of people, a legacy.
Fantastic. Awesome. So that's 20 minutes. It flies by, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
So thank you for your time. So guys, if you're listening to us on your podcast provider, make sure you hit us a review, make sure you follow us every Wednesday at 6 a.m. Obviously, it's the Christmas break now, so we'll be back in the new year. Lots of exciting guests already booked up. And exciting developments on the podcast as well. If you're watching us on the YouTube channel, make sure you hit subscribe, and it'll automatically tell you, if you hit the bell, tells you when the episodes are coming out. So Scott, final thank you. I hope you have a great week, finish of the week. And guys, I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care. Bye.